Let's look at the perform page in a bit more detail because there's more going on here than meets the eye at an initial look. So for each of these two engines, we can turn them on or off there. We see the name of what's loaded in. We have the stepper buttons to browse through them. We have volume control, and this is a level meter. And we can get into the browser by clicking on the name or the little magnifier tool. Now, what we can also do is click or double click on the waveform here, and that'll bring us into the grain page as well. So we can jump right there, and I'll just go back to perform. Same thing with the sample area here. We can click there, double click, and it'll bring us there. Now, it's a little bit tricky, I find. Depends where you click, and you have to be careful. Like, for example, here I clicked and I moved the start point because you can't actually edit some of the parameters here, like the start point for the sample playback and the start and end point for the grain playback. So it's just be careful where you click or double click. I personally prefer to make that small extra mouse move and either go up to here or here to change to the grain page just to avoid any unhappy accidents. So we also have the modulation source here that we can set. When we click here, we assign what is assigned to the modulation source that's tied to the volume knob, because we've seen that we can adjust the volume, and we see that little momentary dot for a modulation value. So we set what we want modulated with the volume here, and then this intensity slider for how much negative or positive modulation we want associated with the volume as you move it. So in this case, whatever's assigned to the y-axis, moving this across here. Usually we use the y-axis for intensity, for some parameter related to the intensity of the sound. So with volume, that amount of the y-axis is tied to this volume amount based on what's assigned here and on this depth level. So same thing happens with this sample page here. We have level meters, volume control, the modulation, and here the y-axis is assigned to here. I assigned it here just to change it, but we can change up and assign any of these things. And same thing with the intensity slider that we can use to set the depth and modulation. We see the name of the sample preset that's loaded. We can get into the browser, turn it on or off there. And you've seen the pages up here that we can get to. And of course, the user snapshots and preset snapshots that are available. And then we have the macros at the bottom that we all know about. Now, I want to look at the XY pad in a little more detail. So this little puck is used to modulate the sound based on what's assigned to the two axes. Now here we can assign a label to these axes by clicking, and we can change to whatever we want. But these are just visual labels. We're not actually changing anything here. We're just changing the name that's applied. And this XY pad also appears on the effects tab over here. And so we can audition what it's doing as we're making adjustments. Same thing in the global page. And you saw it appears in the browsers as well. Now let's look at making some assignments. I want to strip this down to the basics. I'm going to go to the factory presets and under utilities, initialize everything. And this is just the initial sound. So what I'm going to do is turn off the sample engine, and I've recorded a little audio file of myself saying the word ashlight. Ashlight. That's what it sounds like, and I want to bring that in and use it here. Now, we can drag and drop our own audio either onto the granular engine or the sample engine. So I'm going to just drag it into the granular section here. So I'm just going to hit a note on my keyboard.
Ashlight.
Let's turn down the effects so we can, again, really get to the heart of what's going on here.
Ashlight. Ashlight. Ashlight.
So there's some programming already in place.
Ashlight. Ashlight.
So let's say I want to program something for this to modulate. I'm going to jump to the grain page. Now the x-axis is the horizontal axis, and I want to assign scan to that. Let me just set the start and end positions here real quick, just so we get rid of the silence. And here we have a label. We can click next to any of these parameters and assign these to whatever we want. And I'm going to leave this at the x-axis assignment. And then I'm going to bring this down, and then we'll dial up some depth. So now let me go back. So maybe I don't want it to get as fast when I go to the extremes. I'm going to go back, and I'm just going to make the depth a bit shorter. And we can always command click, and that's control click on Windows to snap back to a default value. So let's assign something to the y-axis now. I'm going to go back here and let's assign jitter. So I'm going to click there and change that to the y-axis. And again, I'll dial up some depth here. And now when I move up and down, we'll hear it affect the jitter.
Ashlight, 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 ashlight,
You can see the jitter and hear it reflected there versus less jitter. So just to give you a little introduction to the Perform page and the XY pad. Now I can click here and of course put whatever I want, and I can put jitter for that axis and for here, cursor speed for scan, and have those labeled. And we can of course assign multiple parameters, each with unique depths to the different axes. And I can assign effects. For example, I have some EQ. I can assign parameters from here to the either macros or other areas, but the XY axis, which is what we're looking at here. So really, that's how you can have really powerful control with these XY controls, by assigning these multiple parameters to them and different depths, and having the one gesture affecting so many of the sound shaping parameters within the Ashlight engine. And then on the global page, we can assign MIDI controllers to each axis for real-time dynamic performance control. We'll continue with more in the next video.